Welcome to China Truths. Today we will bring you the following stories. High turnover in Xi Jinping's political faction signals heightened infighting in Beijing. China and Burma top the list for worst internet freedom in the world. British Foreign Secretary under pressure to take tough stance in China visit. Now, let's dive into the details. China Truths. High turnover in Xi Jinping's political faction signals heightened infighting in Beijing. The frequent personnel changes within Xi Jinping's faction indicate a tacit balancing act employed by the top echelons to alleviate internal dissatisfaction with the Chinese leader's governance, according to analysts. Within 2 weeks, from the end of September to early October, at least 3 confidants of Xi, including 1 military disciplinary official, were removed from their key positions or placed under investigation. China watchers say Xi's policies, such as the extreme COVID-19 lockdown measures, crackdown on private enterprises, and wolf warrior diplomacy, have created a gloomy economic climate and strained relations with the West. The change in geopolitical and business environments has caused less benefits for other factions within the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP. Top Chinese officials, especially the party elders, have made compromises within the party in a bid to sustain its totalitarian rule, according to experts. On September 30th, at the high-ranking CCP meeting to mark the 75th anniversary of the founding of People's Republic China, 2 former leaders, Wen Jiabao and Li Ruihuan, sat to the immediate left and right of Xi, which attracted many political interpretations. In his speech, Xi expressed gratitude to the past leaders of the older generation. This is a rare move from the Chinese top helmsman. Xi needs the help of party elders to survive the ongoing political troubles, said Wang He, a political commentator, in an interview with the Pinnacle View, a Chinese language program of NTD. Wang noted that the last time Xi said similar words was in 2014, during the early years of his reign. Xi faced various hurdles from the corruption-riddled bloc led by the late former Chinese leader Jiang Zemin. Later, relying on the party elders' support, Xi consolidated his power and arrested Jiang's henchman, Zhou Yongkan, the former secretary of the Political and Legal Affairs Committee. After a decade, Xi has come to another crossroads. The economy is in shambles, and Xi has no way out. Therefore, he has to appease the patriarchs and draw on their strength, Wang said. Wang added that Xi's extreme left-leaning policies and one-man dictatorship have displeased the party's most powerful political families that monopolize state assets. Patriarchs within are potentially influential. Shi Shan, a China expert and contributor to the Epoch Times, said that the CCP system determines that the patriarchs become the spokesmen and mainstays in power sharing, so their appearance at a significant event suggests unusual political signals. In Shi's view, Xi faces a partial decentralization of power. It is likely that certain tacit agreements and compromises are reached within this particular elite group, he said. All of the members of Xi's camp who had job changes are younger than 65, which is around the peak years of political careers in China. They used to work in areas related to implementing Xi's anti-corruption campaign. On September 30th, Chen Guoqiang, 61, a former disciplinary supervisor in the Central Committee and Central Military Committee, was reassigned to the National University of Defense Technology. Chen played a crucial role in Xi's fight against his political rivals. Chen is the key executor behind major military purges, according to commentator Xiang Yan. It is actually a demotion, said US-based political analyst Chen Pokong. He posited that Chen's shift from the anti-graft department may be a counteract from anti-Xi factions against Xi. Since last year, Xi's anti-corruption campaign has swept through the entire military system. An array of bigwigs have been detained, expelled from the party, or faced military prosecution, including former defense ministers Li Shangfu and Wei Fenghe, as well as several rocket force generals such as former Commander Li Yuchao. Xi's loss of confidence also occurred in the business sector. Chao Xingxin, the deputy general manager of China Unicom, has been placed under investigation, according to an official notice on September 28. China Unicom has been the target of Xi's purges over the past decade due to its alleged corrupt activities and close ties to Jiang Mianeng, the son of Jiang Zemin. The 58-year-old Chao had just transferred to the company in early 2023. He previously served as the deputy director of the cadre division of the organization department, a supervisor body overseeing party staffing positions. According to Chen, all those dynamics won't be what Xi is willing to see, but he might not have been able to prevent them from unfolding for some reason. Since the third plenary session of the 20th Central Committee in July, rumors surfaced that Xi had suffered a stroke or was seriously ill. Opponents may view this as an opportunity to subdue Xi's power by removing his cronies, Chen said. The power struggle within the party has resulted in political instability, said Wang. China may enter a stage where sudden changes could happen at any time because the ruling party is trapped in double-fold fatal crises: Xi's leadership and the CCP's survival, he said. Both cannot be easily mitigated. China and Burma top the list for worst internet freedom in the world. China and Burma are tied for the worst internet freedom environments in the world, according to a new report by rights group Freedom House. The Washington-based pro-democracy research group said in its Freedom on the Net annual report, published on October 16, that global internet freedom has declined for the 14th year in a row. The group said in a press release that citizens in at least 43 countries have been attacked or killed for their online speech and activities, which is a record high. The 2024 report assesses digital freedom in 72 countries and regions, which account for 87% of the world's internet users, between June 2023 and May 2024. The assessment uses a standard methodology to determine each country's internet freedom score on a 100-point scale, with 21 separate indicators covering access barriers, content restrictions, and violations of user rights. Iceland was ranked the top country for internet freedom for the 6th consecutive year, scoring 94 points. China continues to be ranked as the country with the lowest internet freedom score for the 10th consecutive year, with 9 points. Chinese internet users have faced the world's worst conditions for internet freedom for a decade. People face severe legal and extra-legal repercussions for online activities like sharing news stories, talking about their religious beliefs, and communicating with family members and others overseas, the report reads. Freedom House says that Beijing uses its Great Firewall to isolate the country from the rest of the world and block content it considers a threat to the government. Beijing has continued to punish Chinese people for using VPNs to bypass its censorship. Authorities wield immense power over the technology industry, deploying regulatory investigations and removal orders to enforce government narratives, it reads. Asked about the report at a regular press briefing in Beijing on October 16, Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokeswoman Mao Ning said the Chinese people enjoy various rights and freedoms in accordance with the law. However, internet freedom has continued to worsen in China, as the authoritarian regime has become increasingly repressive in recent years, the report states, adding that Beijing continues to tighten control over all aspects of life and governance, including the state bureaucracy, the media, online speech, religious practice, universities, businesses, and civil society associations. Following a multi-year crackdown on political dissent, independent non-governmental organizations, NGO, and human rights defenders, China's civil society has been largely decimated, the report states. On the contrary, Taiwan ranked first in Asia and 7th in the world with 79 points. The island nation's civil society has established a transparent, decentralized, and collaborative approach to fact-checking and disinformation research that stands as a global model, according to the report. Taiwan's transparency in society fostered trust and legitimacy with the public, allowed for open debate about how to address false and misleading content, and facilitated the incorporation of diverse expertise that leads to more informed and effective actions, the report points out, citing Taiwan's effort to combat an online misinformation campaign launched by Beijing to interfere with the country's election in January as an example. Lai Rongwei, a Taiwanese researcher and CEO of the Taiwan Inspirational Association, said that the Freedom House report highlights how Beijing controls speech online and manipulates public opinion through social media. The CCP's strategy aims to undermine global trust, particularly in democratic countries, by using artificial intelligence-generated deepfakes to erode people's confidence in their government's efficiency. Such actions threaten to diminish trust in democratic values as a whole, he told the Chinese edition of the Epoch Times on October 17. Beijing's interference with Taiwan is one example. Zhang Yisua, an associate researcher at the Cybersecurity and Decision-Making Division at the Institute for National Defense and Security Research in Taiwan, told the Epoch Times that an effective way to counter China's brainwashing and interference on social media is to strengthen everyone's media literacy. Basically, you can only mitigate Beijing's online tactics, which would gradually make them less effective over time. This is the only way to achieve the goal of countering Beijing's tactics, Zhang said. British Foreign Secretary under pressure to take tough stance in China visit. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy will urge China to stop supporting Russia in the ongoing conflict with Ukraine on a 2-day visit this week, as the British government said it will continue challenging China where we must. The visit signals the resumption of high-level diplomatic engagement with China, but Lammy's trip on Friday comes with the firm recognition that London and Beijing will not, and do not, always agree, the UK Foreign Office said. China faces ongoing allegations of human rights abuses against the mainly Muslim Uyghur minority group, as well as the unlawful detention of Jimmy Lai, a Hong Kong businessman and democracy campaigner who holds British citizenship. Concerns were raised in Parliament this week over China's activities in the Taiwan Strait, in the former British colony of Hong Kong, and in UK universities, as well as its backing of Russia in the Ukraine conflict. Lammy, who previously described Beijing's treatment of Uyghurs as a genocide, is under pressure from across the political spectrum and from human rights groups to display a tough stance on such issues as he makes his first trip to the country since the Labour Party came to power. The UK Foreign Office said engagement with Beijing is vital owing to its position as a rising global power and that the visit would kickstart a stable, consistent, and pragmatic approach to China. Lammy is expected to meet his counterpart Wang Yi in Beijing to discuss not only foreign affairs, but wide-ranging policies around trade and climate. The UK Foreign Office said he would also hold talks with British businesses in Shanghai to discuss how economic links with China support growth in the UK. Speaking ahead of his departure, Lammy said it was important to speak candidly about both areas of contention as well as areas for cooperation in the UK's national interest. As permanent members of the UN Security Council with major global economies, the UK and China are global players. Our relationship matters, he said. Engagement with China is pragmatic and necessary to support UK and global interests. From stopping Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine to supporting a global green transition, we must speak often and candidly across both areas of contention as well as areas for cooperation in the UK's national interest. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has described the government's approach towards China as cooperate where we can, compete where we have different interests, and challenge where it is needed. China held large-scale military exercises surrounding Taiwan and its outlying islands earlier this week, which Starmer described as not conducive to peace and stability. Pressed by former Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in the House of Commons on Wednesday, Starmer said, "Stability in the Taiwan Strait is in all of our interests." Sunak used Prime Minister's questions time to accuse China of carrying out unwarranted, aggressive, and intimidatory military exercises in the Taiwan Strait. He added, "Our allies are rightly concerned." After worrying reports that the government may have intervened to stop a visit to the UK by the former Taiwanese president, will the Prime Minister confirm that the Foreign Secretary will use his meetings in Beijing this week to condemn China's dangerous escalatory acts in the Strait? Sunak added that while he agreed the visit should be used to benefit UK interests, he urged Lammy to unequivocally condemn this military escalation and stand up for democracy in Taiwan. Setting out his wider approach to China, Starmer said, "We will cooperate where we can as permanent members of the UN Security Council on issues such as net zero and health and trade. Compete where we have different interests, and challenge where it is needed to protect national security, human rights, and our values. We will put that challenge in." The Conservative leader also asked Starmer whether he was prepared to sanction China for selling weapons to Russia, accusing Beijing of being decisive enablers of the military action against Ukraine. Starmer replied that he would be prepared to do this, but disagreed with Sunak's assertion that the Labour government has stopped implementing the foreign influence registration scheme which the Conservatives introduced, saying simply, "That is not correct." Sunak also asked about Chinese activities within higher education, saying that Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee has warned that British universities are increasingly a rich feeding ground for China to exert political influence over us. He said the last government had passed the Higher Education, Freedom of Speech Act in 2023 partly to help defend the UK from the threat from Chinese influence, and said this was now in jeopardy as the new Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson has paused the implementation of the law. In a statement ahead of the visit, the UK Foreign Office said, UK diplomatic efforts with China will be one of serious, stable and pragmatic re-engagement across the full spectrum of government, prioritizing the UK's national interests. This will come with a firm recognition that the UK and China will not, and do not, always agree. We have significant differences including on democratic values and freedoms, Hong Kong and support for Russia's illegal war in Ukraine, but we also have shared interests, including a global green energy transition, and deep economic links, with China including Hong Kong, the UK's fourth largest trading partner.